Today in Matt's class, we are going to talk about how to illustrate the transition wipe. So wipe is a really cool transition. You don't see it in every project necessarily. It definitely has kind of an aesthetic to it that you see in certain kinds of projects. And what wipe is, by definition, usually it happens at the beginning or an end of a scene, although it certainly could be in the middle of a scene, but it's whenever you have one shot and it slowly gets replaced by another shot, but instead of dissolving, it's almost like there's an edge moving across. The camera isn't moving though. An edge is moving across, and then you've got something else happening underneath it. You can have an edge wipe that goes from side to side. You can have a wipe that goes up, that comes back down. Sometimes we call them either circle wipes, or iris is the technique where you are going into a specific place or opening. You've got Porky Pig at the end of Looney Tunes. That's all, folks. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, all different kinds of wipes. If you've ever seen the Star Wars movies, a lot of times when it goes from one scene to the next scene, it will slowly wipe across or wipe up and down. Again, you don't see this all the time. Normally, if you do see wipes, it's usually in something that's a little bit more fantasy or fairy tale-ish. And the reason why, it feels like you're turning the page to whatever's happening next. It's a new chapter as we turn the page. And that's a really cool thing. So it would be really weird if you had wipes, because it kind of feels whimsical a little bit. Imagine having wipes in a mobster movie. How weird would it be, like right after someone, say hello to my little friend, and this person puts, 50 bullet holes in someone's chest, and then bring, meanwhile, on the other side of Chicago. That would be really weird. It would just kind of, the whimsicalness would kind of take away from kind of the grittiness of your mob movie. So wipe definitely has an aesthetic to it that you would want to use in a particular kind of story. Here is how you illustrate it. Let's say we've got a shot where it's the end of a scene and Luke just got done staring at the twin suns of Tatooine, and he goes into his cool little igloo looking house. Here's the twin suns of Tatooine, very beautiful. And then let's say the screen, it's going to kind of wipe across as this edge goes like so. And in order to indicate that, if you've got an edge like this, you simply just have the edge. You draw a two-dimensional arrow showing the direction of the wipe, and you simply write the word wipe. And then what are we wiping to? Well, maybe we've got a shot of the Death Star in space. And then maybe you've got these two TIE fighters. They make that noise, and then maybe there's just some random, something like so. So again, we've got a shot like this up here. This is what we see. It's going to wipe across, and underneath that shot, it turns into this shot down here. All different kinds of wipes. If you've ever used any kind of animation software or video editing software, you've probably seen they have a folder usually of different transitions, and a lot of them, usually there's one called Jaws where it's literally like teeth that kind of go into the next shot like so, which is really funny. I remember one time, I don't remember what software that it was, but there was a transition called Rubik's, and I was like, no, I have to see this. So I dropped it on my image, and sure enough, it turned my footage into like a Rubik's Cube, and it Rubik's Cubed into the next shot. And I was like, when would you ever want to use this in your project? But then I was like, you know what?
When wouldn't you?
Well, if you're ever making an after-school special for, like, I don't know, maybe it's like a cheesy story about these kids in junior high that maybe they have a contest to see who can do the Rubik's Cube the fastest. Wouldn't it be super adorable every time it goes to a new scene if it actually Rubik's Cubed into the next scene? That would actually work pretty well for something like that. But again, to each his own. You don't see these kinds of wipes in every project, and sometimes you run the risk of making your project feel a little bit corny, but sometimes it's the perfect thing. If you've got something a little bit whimsical, it's just a nice touch kind of from one scene to another, and it works out really well. Another one that you'll see a lot is what's called a clock wipe. And what that is when you've got the screen, it kind of starts here and then it splits around and it kind of goes around a clock, something like so. And if you were illustrating this, you could do a wipe. Let's say you've got this teacher who passes out a test for all of the students to take. And she says, listen, you have an hour to do this test. So students start frantically writing. And then let's say you have this wipe that goes around the clock like this. And then you have the students, they kind of finish. And then the teacher says, all right, pass them up, time's up. And you know that an hour has passed because it was almost like a clock as it moves around like so. So that is your wipe. Incidentally, wipes can be really cool. And can you tell me, James, what is the name of the show in the 90s? It was the #1 most watched show in the 90s, and it had the craziest wipes unlike any other show that has ever been on television.
It's not safe. Home Improvement.
Home Improvement, that's exactly it. So you probably, if you've ever seen the show, you've got Tim Allen talking to Wilson on the other side of the fence and you never saw his face. But a lot of times at the end of that scene, they would do this really crazy thing where the people would pull sideways, the fence would knock down, a house would flip up, and then the camera would shoot into the house. And you would just be like, whoa. And an interesting thing about that, I actually read an article once with one of the producers of Home Improvement. And the question was, what do you think the secret of Home Improvement's success was? Why do you think it was the most watched show, the most popular show during the 90s? Is it because Tim Allen is so funny? Is it because Tool Time girl Pamela Anderson is so hot? What is the secret? And I'll never forget, the producer said, you know what our secret was? Wipes. Our wipes were so crazy that people just had to see what was going to happen next. And if you think about it, a lot of times when you go from one scene to another, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a buzzkill, but a lot of times you have a rhythm to a scene where it ends and then, meanwhile, on the other side of town, and now you've got something new happening. Well, every time you have kind of a break like that, or if you dissolve into a new scene, that's usually when people kind of like, they kind of check to see what time is it? Did I get a new text or a new email? Hey, do we have popcorn in the fridge over there? Or worst ever, let me check and see what's on the, I want to see what, you know, what's happening with the game. And that is the kiss of death. You never want people to switch to another channel. So Home Improvement was very successful. Their wipes were so crazy, you never wanted to look away. So very cool. That is wipes, and that concludes all of our transitions, all of our camera techniques. I can't wait to see what you guys do putting all of these to the test and utilizing these awesome camera techniques and transitions for your visual storytelling.